Hello, I'm Archie Luxury and welcome to the program. Today I want to look at some Rolex books, and I want to start by having a look at some fantastic books that are on the subject of Rolex wristwatches. And let's have a look here. Let's have a look. Probably one of the most famous books on Rolex is the Dowling and Hess book. And I've actually met James Dowling, and I gotta say, in all honesty, he's a really aloof fucker. You know, he's just sort of, I don't know what to say. I met him at a watch show in Hong Kong, and I don't know, he's just an aloof fucker. I didn't really like him. I've spoken to him on email, I sold him a watch even, but he just was a very aloof fucker, and I didn't really like him. But one of the best watches on Rolex is the Dowling and Hess book, and we'll just have a look here. It's quite a substantial book, and let's just have a look. This is probably one of the best books in the sense that it gives the story on Rolex watches, where they came from, how they evolved, and it gets right into, it shows you the first oyster cases, how they came out, and this is probably one of the best general Rolex books. It really covers the topic well. I mean, there are better sports watch books, there are better, you know, books on watch history, but if you want a general Rolex, just encyclopedia, this is probably it. And it's got some fantastic photos in it. And some of these watches, just eye-watering, absolutely beautiful models. I look at the prints. It just goes through so many beautiful things here. And it's not a cheap book, but in the same token, they're readily available. And they go into how the explorers came out, how the date just evolved, and it's really, if you're a Rolex lover, this is the book to get. And I've owned this copy for a number of years, and I often come back to it. Look at the Explorer, where they came from, how they evolved. It's even got things like, it shows you the Explorer 2 here. It's even got wonderful things like the wonderful brochures. Look at that. I mean, that's just so hard to come across. So that's really quite a fantastic book to get there. That's the Dowling Hess book, and I'd really recommend it. It's a fantastic book to have there. Not cheap, but if you're a Rolex lover, I think that's probably the authentic, you know, that's probably the best one to get there. Probably the best sports watch book on Rolex is this one here, Vintage Rolex Sports Watches, and it's I think is probably what most collectors would really, this is probably the best one, because what it does is it looks at the magnificent sports Rolexes, and it gives you the details, the specifications. It shows you how these models evolved. So if you're a sports Rolex lover, this is the must-have. It shows you the model, it gives you the specifications. Again, it's got a lot of the beautiful old brochures displayed here in it, and even the catalogues. And I think really, if you're a sports fan, it's even got a lot of Sotheby's auction catalogue details here. But it's just fantastic, just how this book is laid out and explains the different models here. For example, the Explorer 2, it goes through the different variations. So I really think if you're after a book on sports Rolexes, vintage Rolexes, sports models, this is the one to get. And that's probably, look, the Dowling book is great. That's a sort of like a really good guide to Rolexes, but the vintage Rolex sports models is the best sports Rolex book to get. Another book I got recently is this book here, which is on Rolex wristwatches, hardcover book, and it doesn't have a lot of words in it, but magnificent photography in it. A lot of mini pictures, so you can see variations, and that's very handy. If you're a vintage Rolex collector, you can see different variations on the pieces. So it's a handy book to have. As I mentioned, there are not a lot of words in it, but it's really handy because it shows you all the variations. So, you know, if there is some anomalies on a piece you're looking at, this is the information you need. So that's Rolex 3,621 wristwatches. It's a good book. Another book I've had is the Rolex Report, and that's a cool book. That's a cool book. John Brozick. He's also got a website, and look, it's a good book. It's not as good as the Dowling book, but it shows you where some of the counterfeit things exist. And I mean, this is a if you're a Rolex person, you need to have his book. It's great. It gives you a lot of information on serial numbers, model numbers, even things like how to photograph a Rolex, cleaning your Rolex. It's a good book. I'm glad I bought it. It's a good book to have in the collection. And finally, this is the George Gordon book, Rolex, which has got the green sleeve. And I owned this book before and I sold it, and I bought it back. And it's a great book. Great photography, a lot of good information in it, and it uses a lot of sort of auction type photo type photography. But again, if you get one smidgen of information out of this book, you know, it's worth the money. And it's getting a bit hard to get this one now, so I'm really pleased I've got it. It's a really good book, and I'm pleased to have it. And it comes with a certificate of ownership. What the bloody hell that means, I really don't know. But look, collecting watches, you need to get as much information as you can. I'm Archie Luxury, and I hope you've enjoyed this snippet at some of my Rolex books.
Snuggle up in each other.